Hello and welcome to the tutorial on QoF. This is part 1 of 3, and this first part will be exploring a few organisation preferences you can set to make life a little bit easier in capturing QoF data at your practice, and then we're going to spend some time exploring the QoF timeline. Firstly, an important organisation preference you need to set is in the Setup menu, Users and Policy, and Organisation Preferences. First thing we need to do is change the way the QoF alerts display. So we need to go into Clinical Policy, into QoF, and we need to set this option to end of financial year. Now this will change the date that the QoF alerts are based on so that you can get a more accurate reflection of the work that needs doing by the 31st of March. Now this will affect the QoF alerts in the patient's home screen on the right hand side of the patient record, and also at the appointment booking stage on the right hand side as well. Now it's important to set this back to How Am I Driving after the 1st of April, otherwise your alerts will be based on data from the 31st of March 2015. So keep this option on end of financial year until the 31st of March, and then swap it back over to How Am I Driving after that. Now we can have a look at the QoF timeline. So we press OK on the organisation preferences to save them. And I'm going to load up one of my test patients, Fred Bloggs, who coincidentally needs quite a lot of work doing. So that option we set in organisation preferences will be affecting these QoF alerts. This will be the main way of identifying what QoF work needs to be done for the patient. Now you can action these QoF alerts in a number of different ways, which I'm going to go through in a minute, but you can see here it says using end of year values, so you know that that option we set in the background has made some difference. Now those QoF alerts are also displayed on the right hand side here. You can see it says QoF 11, and if you click on this little button you get the same list of QoF alerts as well. So one important thing we need to add, again in organisation preferences, is the QoF timeline. So this is located in Clinical Policy, and we need to add it to our clinical tree. So we go into Clinical Tree Configuration. The organisation tree that you're using should be selected automatically, so we should just be able to click Amend Setup. In the search box, just type in QoF timeline, and then click Search. Click where you want to add it underneath on the right hand side. I'm just going to add it onto the bottom, so underneath New Journal. And then we can double click QoF timeline on the left to add it over. There it is. So I can now click OK, OK again. And if I use the clinical tree on the left, go right to the bottom where we added it, here is QoF timeline. So this is what I'm going to go through now. If you click QoF timeline, this is what appears. So you get lots of different coloured boxes, a green column, green rows rather, red rows and grey rows. You also get sections for each indicator or each register, QoF register that the patient is on. So we've got asthma, blood pressure, diabetes and smoking. The patient is on all 4 of these registers in QoF. So if we have a look at what these different coloured bars mean, they correspond to the different indicators within asthma, blood pressure and diabetes. So for asthma 002 we can see there's a green bar, and that means that this patient has achieved that particular indicator, or the work has been done for that particular indicator. For the red one, asthma 003, it means that the work has yet to be done. The code still needs to be entered to achieve that patient on that indicator. For the grey one, it means that the patient is excluded from that particular indicator. Now there are a few things you can do in here to make your life a little bit easier in terms of capturing data. What you can do is right click on one of these bars and you get three options. You get record achievement, record exclusion and view achievement paths. If you just wanted to say the work has been done, so you want to record the code, you can click on record achievement. You can enter the date that you want to put the code in on. You can backdate it if you need to. I'm going to put it in on today's date. You'll then get a list of codes that you can put in that are relevant to that particular QoF indicator. These are all valid for QoF, so any one of these will satisfy that particular criteria, as long as you're entering the code on the right date range. So what you can also do on a right click is record an exclusion. In exactly the same way, choose the date and you get a list of exclusion codes. So these could be different exclusion codes depending on what register or what indicator you're entering them for. Let's say the patient here is refused asthma monitoring. That would then exclude them from that indicator. So you wouldn't be penalised for not achieving on that patient. It could be you've invited the patient in for some work that needs doing 3 times, and you could then exclude them from that indicator. Any one of those will satisfy this particular area. You can also record those same items in one fell swoop for all of the work that needs doing for this patient by clicking on Process QoF Alerts up here in the top left. If I click on that, this box will appear and we get the same options, record achievement and record exclusion, for each red item or each item that is still outstanding. So if I click on record achievement, I get the same list of codes that I got in the previous section. And if I do record exclusion, I'll get the exclusion codes. Now if I click on one of the items that has a value associated with it, such as here in diabetes, is a hemoglobin level, I'll get the value box on the left hand side, so I can put in all of the data that I need to satisfy all of the work that needs doing for this patient in this one screen. Now the only drawback with this screen is that for each item, more so for the values than anything else, you don't get to see any of the previous data for that item or for that code. So if I was entering a hemoglobin level here for this patient on DM007, I don't get to see the previous ones, so there's less of the ability to kind of manage the condition by seeing any trends in the previous values. I'm just entering a completely new one. So for that reason you may want to stick with using the clinical templates, maybe the Northwest London templates that have been configured on your clinical tree, because they do give you the previous entries for each item. But it's something good to bear in mind that you do have this option to quickly capture all of the information you need. Now last but not least, what you can also do is hover over each area and you'll get a pop-up tooltip that tells you why the patient has either achieved on that indicator or failed on that indicator. So you can hover over the green ones or the red ones and it will tell you a little bit more information. What you can also do is right click and do view achievement paths. This will give you the same data, but you'll actually be able to tell exactly what codes are required or acceptable for each indicator as well. Now we're looking at the asthma one here, so we can see that the indicator will be achieved by recording one of the following sets of codes. Now there may be more than one set and you need to achieve everything within one set. So this particular set is requiring 4 different codes. So to achieve on this particular indicator, we need to enter each of these 4 codes, or a code from each of these areas to satisfy this area. And if we click on each set, or each cluster I should say, we get the valid codes that are acceptable for this indicator. So any one of these codes will satisfy that particular area. But remember, there are 4 requirements here, so we would need to do one code from each of these clusters, each of these 4 clusters, to satisfy this particular area. So if you're troubleshooting a particular patient and you want to find out why maybe you've coded a patient as having some work done but they're still getting a QoF alert, this would be the area to come to make sure you're using the correct codes.